And on that note, I want to sort of introduce Samriddh. Samriddh, if you're all not aware, is the head of marketing at Heads Up for Tails. Heads Up for Tails is one of those premier D2C brands specifically focused on pet care. Samriddh has been a D2C expert and has been in the D2C industry before it was coined as D2C. Every time when I tell somebody D2C, he tells me, no, sir, it's not D2C, it's digital first. And he talks about omni-channel, and I think we'll sort of communicate that also throughout the program. But on one of those second notes is Samriddh, before Heads Up for Tails, was leading marketing at Bombay Shaving. Before that, at a company called Akiva Superfoods, and then head of marketing earlier. And I know Samriddh from a decade old experience at Dine Out, where he was leading marketing there. And honestly, there's no other better person in terms of sort of teaching storytelling for D2C brands very, very closely. And hence, we sort of always request him to sort of start and kickstart off our session in this cohort. And on that note, we just want to sort of put our hands together and sort of a round of claps. And Samriddh, welcome to Expert. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much. And I don't think that I'm the best person. Honestly, I think each of you have amazing stories, and I'm just a facilitator today. Okay, that's all that my role is. I have chosen not to take any pressure in my life, and when Sharath puts me in the first session for the first expert piece, I just automatically tune out. I'm not good with pressure at all in life. So every time I come into this, I'm like, listen, my job is only to help each of us arrive at some degree of a story. But honestly, I think the stories are going to come from you. It's not going to come from me. Having said that, Sharath set the context very interestingly, and I think all of you sort of came in with a perspective. I'm really sorry. I've been battling this very bad sinus. I blame it on Delhi. So if I'm going to sound like this through the call, kindly excuse me if I take a break to sneeze and cough. I promise that I'm going to go on mute. Sharath, just one thing. I can't see anyone other than me. Okay, is it setting at my end?
Yeah. Top right, if you go to view and you can click on gallery, you'll see everyone.
Okay, just 1 second. Sorry.
This view main speaker, and then there's gallery, top right.
Oh yeah, okay. Got it. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Seeing myself that big is not good. No, I don't want to see myself that big, man. I'm mad or what? I avoid a mirror just for this reason. So listen, it's been a fun ride for me till now, right? I started in filmmaking as opposed to straight up MBA and which I did much later on in my life. But I started in filmmaking. I started by learning the language of movies, right? I started in production. I used to do music videos for Euphoria. I don't know if you have heard that music. It used to be very, very iconic at a certain point of time. I used to make ads for Artstuck. I used to do promos for Ariel, Surf. I mean, you name it, I have essentially got my hands dirty in filmmaking for a very long period of time. I learned that there's a language, right? And that language sort of moves across the spoken word. It goes down to how we want people to feel. And filmmaking is about that. How do you make people feel at the end of it? There are, of course, some iconic dialogues. There's music. There are moments that you leave behind. But most of it comes down to how do you make people feel. From filmmaking, I moved to radio. Again, it came down to how do you make people feel by the medium of sound. I was very early stage 91 when 91 was 91.1 and we had an uphill task, right? So people were used to listening to All India Radio, and just the idea of a modern day conversation happening on radio was not present in those days. So there was a behavior change that needed to come in, and that again behavior change came into how would you get people immersed into the idea of radio, right? How do you make them a participant? How do you make them an equal participant in a medium which is not visual, right? And there's a reason why I'm saying all of this. Filmmaking is, again, a medium which is not participative. You have someone who's making something and you have someone who's watching something. The participatory piece comes in maybe much later, and I'm going to speak about that very quickly. Radio, again, is a non-participatory medium. Or was a non-participatory medium till very, very long back when you wouldn't have people calling in. Post which I did advertising, again, it is a very, so I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff out there and hope something sticks. It's very noisy. The entire advertising world is extremely noisy. So I was a part of that. I was a part of that for about 11 odd years. I ran my own agency. We did some really good work, but most of the work would come down to either solving for awards or solving for very specific media requirements. one thing that I learned through this journey of filmmaking, radio, and then advertising is that all of this is extremely transient. And the only thing that you can do as business owners is start to solve for that business problem, right? And maybe media solves for it, maybe stories solve for it, maybe feelings solve for it, maybe emotions end up solving for it in some form. But you end up solving for it. You end up solving for this in the 10,000 ways that you can, as long as you're solving for that one big business problem, right? So that's when I started to wear a marketeer's hat. And now it's been almost a decade just being in marketing. And, if nothing else, what 19, 20 years or tells you and teaches you, at least in a profession where everyone knows how to do marketing better than you. By the way, that's a standard thing with marketers, right? Everyone knows how to do marketing better than marketers. So don't worry, as founders, everyone in your team will know how to make the product better than you. So that's okay. Live with it. It's actually extremely enjoyable after a while. But if there's one thing that I've learned after the last 19 odd years, or in the last 19 odd years, is you're only as good as what you've put out today. Okay, forget about yesterday. Yesterday is dead. You're only as good as what you put out today. And what you put out today is going to be informed not just by the ability to tell that story, the ability to make a fantastic product, but it's the ability to craft what I call your central narrative, right? Why do you even exist? Who's going to miss you if you're gone? What's going to happen if you're not there? What changes in the world? What's your opinion? Do you have a point of view? If you don't have a point of view, then why are you even here? Right? And if every day you're not putting that out, then honestly, you've lost the battle even before you move on to the battlefield, right? And I'm going to try and take the next 40 odd minutes to take you through some degree of a framework that I've set, which is inspired, informed by the many years that I've been doing this. Sorry, my voice is generally better than this. I did say radio, right, at some point, but I'm just going to blame it on the sinus for now. And there are three. So I went through everyone's case studies. A lot of you had filled in a form that I think Sharad and Jasmine had shared. There were three very interesting businesses that, and the reason why I picked those three businesses, and we are going to do a little bit of a workshop with those three businesses. The reason why I picked those three is one, I think they're in challenger categories. They have a very strong story to be told, and they'll be able to disrupt the way you are going to engage with each other today. Okay, so I have only two ambitions that I want to leave you with today. One, the ability to think through your own story, right? And you know why it's super important? I work in an extremely fast-paced category building organization, right? And we are deeply capitalized. We are deeply funded. And I have a very strong responsibility towards my entire stakeholder ecosystem to make sure that every money that we spend, every rupee that we spend, we end up making more from it. It's standard, right? It's a very standard thing that you need to make more money per money. The fact is performance marketing is dead. And Sharad, I'm sorry, I know you're going to have performance marketing experts coming in after this at some point. And I'm hoping that they're going to say the same thing, that there is no performance marketing if brand is not going to lead to performance. Okay, so that's number one. Sorry, Sharad, for throwing whoever else is going to come after this under the bus. It's getting more expensive. Okay, the world's getting noisier. It's getting more expensive. You're going to make less money per money. You're going to start to see unit economics going for a complete flying toss. You're going to realize that logistics costs are going to absolutely skyrocket. You're going to make far less gross margins. Your EBITDA is going to start looking extremely wonky. And I'm sorry, I'm hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if there were term sheets that are going to be closed, people are going to get a little bit more cautious about looking at whether you're putting your marketing discounts under your costs or you're putting your marketing discounts as a separate piece, right? So the way you even structure your P&L is going to be completely challenged just because of the fact that there's far more practicality in the capital that's coming in, right? And I love that. Okay, I love that. I have been through the 2004 cycle. I have been to the 2008 cycle. I've been to the 2014 cycle. And let me tell you, capital that was being deployed into this economy was non-challenged capital. No one was really looking at it. No one was wearing a lens where they would be able to look at the bits and atoms moving. I'm extremely happy that now there is a far more consciousness to that capital, right? But what that brings to the table for all of us, including me, is an extremely strong sense of responsibility to make sure that we are doing justice to it. And ergo, the performance marketing piece is always going to come back and start to bite you, because it's a lot of money being spent to get far less money, right? What will help you through this journey is the ability to create stories that will make a difference to the way people will feel about you. And I'm choosing these words very carefully. People need to feel a certain way about you. Forget about everything else. What they say, what they don't say, what they don't do. How you make them feel about you is going to help your brand stand the really, really testing times that we are all in. Okay. But I don't want this to be all about holding back. I want this session to be about creating, right? So I'm going to take over the screen, Sharad. I don't know if I can share. Am I allowed to?
Yeah, you're allowed to.
Okay. Okay, just 1 second. Sorry. All right. This is actually the favorite part of my session with Sharad, because he loves Notion, and he says, "Jo bhi karna isi mein kar do yaar. We don't need slides and all of that." I love it. Helps me. Sharad, by the way, I actually started to pick up Notion because of you. Huh? I have
Really?
to. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, till before this, I was essentially making grocery lists on this. I had a list which, like, what does my son want and what do I need to buy today and all of that. But thanks to you, I've moved to Notion. So anyone who's not used Notion, please do. I think Sharad gets paid a commission.
Not
Sorry.
yet. Not yet.
Not yet. No, but it's cool, and I love it. I love the way it moves through. So listen, what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to take about 35, 40 odd minutes. I'm going to take you through something super quickly. Then we're going to do a quick breakout where there are going to be 3 brands, 3, right, Sharad? We find this out on 3?
Yep, 3 brands.
Yeah. So they're going to 3 brands. Sure, it's a huge cohort, so we'll have to really figure out how we can do this. And then we'll come back and we'll speak a little bit more, right? I would encourage you to keep questions to maybe probably 20 minutes out, so that at least I can complete my flow.
Absolutely.
Right? Just for everyone also. But listen, if there's a fantastic anecdote that you would love to share, please do share it. Okay. Like I'm also coming at it from a point of view that, hey, if it's something that helps me, because speaking for 45 minutes, honestly, is difficult, and speaking for 2 hours is very, very difficult. So if there is something that gives me a break and you want to come in and just chip in and say something interesting for the rest of the cohort, please do so. Okay, across the board. All right. Having said that, I'm actually going to start this. Can everyone see my screen? I'm assuming that's a yes. Sorry, it's a silly question to ask when there's so many people. All right. I'm gonna start this with an idea of us. Okay. As human beings, we are generally slotted, bracketed, labeled very, very quickly in our lives. We are introverts, extroverts. We are likable, non-likable. We are happy, sad. We are intelligent, unintelligent, etc., etc. Labels come very easy, especially when you are working with other human beings, right? I have the privilege of working with animals who don't label you. So I just wanted to put it out there. But when you work with human beings, you get labeled very quickly. So we're going to have a Mr. T, okay? A Mr. T who's a parent to 2 smart, beautiful, and strong girls. He keeps working with them. He teaches them to be stronger. He teaches them to be more independent. He teaches them to be more self-aware, right? In fact, these are not principles that we should anyways do in life, but he's working very hard on them. He's working hard to save the earth. God knows we need it right now. He spends time nurturing a garden. He's creating a very beautiful place for him to retire, something that I do aspire to do at some stage. He believes in sustainable living, buying less, producing more, minimalism, carbon footprint, all of that jazz. So that's sustainable living in some form. Doesn't have a lot of belongings. He loves the minimalists, and people follow him and people admire him. So at least his own community, a set of people, they love him and they admire him and they follow him. That's Mr. T, right? So I've just given you a story of an individual who clearly is a parent, who's intelligent, who's smart, and who's trying to do the right thing. I'm now going to open this up. What do you think of him? And feel free to throw answers, right? Just speak up. No one needs to raise their hand. What do you think of him? What does he sound like? Would you be friends with him? How do you think he looks? Would you trust him? Right? I mean, those are the most important questions. Just feel free. I actually can't read the chat, Sharad, so I don't know what's happening there. I don't want to open the chat up.
Ashutosh from chat shares, he seems like a great guy.
Okay.
Khushbu from Lattu Land shares, he seems reasonable for family and for environment. People also can unmute and sort of share.
Yeah, just speak up. Yeah.
I feel he believes in the sustainable way of living and minimalism, and he cares for the environment, which is very, very good. We have to care for Mother Earth for the future generations. We have to leave it a better place, and he is trustworthy, and he looks like a responsible, evolved individual.
Awesome.
I think seems like a dependable person. Seems like a dependable person, someone you can have a good conversation with. There's thought and research into what he's doing.
So I think he seems like an ideal customer. I'm just kidding, but seems
maybe
like
he is.
Yeah,
definitely ideal customer.
Yeah.
Like
would you trust him?
Yeah.
Would all of you trust him?
I think it sounds great on paper, but you don't know how he plans his execution. Like Putin also has a great reason to invade the country, but it's the storytelling in us that veers it in a different direction. We think we're doing well because our intention is right. But it's also the execution of it. How are you going about this thing? So there isn't enough information. So I wouldn't trust him until I know the entire story. But he sounds great.
Sorry, who said this?
Bindya.
Hey, Bindya. Hi.
Hi, Samriddh.
Hi. Okay, that's awesome. So we're actually going to stop for a second. Bindya, you said something super important. One, you don't have enough information, which is true. Second is the way this intent is going to manifest. Right. So the way you would execute a bunch of these things, right? And that's super important. But that's secondary information. That's what people would love to double click on, get to know more. But if you were to read something like this, and now this is across, your prima facie, you say, hey, interesting person, right? I'm probably going to try and get to know him or her a little better, right? But absolutely, and everyone, I think Bindya's thought is absolutely spot on. Because the person we are actually speaking about is Thanos. Okay. It's exactly that. We are speaking of Thanos. I love Thanos, by the way. I love his philosophy. I personally believe that there comes a point where the load comes off and we restart. But that's just my personal philosophy, and we can speak about that later. But Thanos has not been spoken of like this. So I'm a massive Marvel fan. And every time you would even read, there are hook notes to Thanos. And if you read that, a lot of the writing goes down to saying he is of impeachable character with absolutely ulterior motives, which are not going to be understood. Right. So that's the hook notes. Those are the footnotes that are there on Thanos' character. If you actually read through some of those points, it's brilliant. Writers have essentially made him out to be one of the most complicated characters there is. But we are all complicated human beings. And the way we tell our story in the most simplified manner is what's going to help people understand where we come from and why are we here, right? So this is just a segue into what we're going to speak about. And what really matters is how we write about our lives, our personal brand, the reflection of that on our product or the service brand that we have. That's what makes the biggest amount of difference. See, if this was a traditional FMCG setup where, I speak to a lot of traditional FMCG setups also, and believe me, my approach there is completely different. My approach there is about differentiation. It's about distinction, and it's about pricing, and it's about formulations. It's completely different as a conversation today, because we are all in challenger environments and we are in challenger categories. What we say about us is what will define our brands that we sell, right? So that's where the difference is. The difference is that for brands like us, it is inside out. And for a lot of FMCG, large scale, big food, big pharma, big money, big fintech, big tech brands, it's not so much inside out, it's about outside in, right? They solve large scale consumer problems or they create large scale consumer problems to be able to go back and solve them. But in this case, what we are really doing is we are saying, hey, we have a personal initiative. We have a personal bias to solve this because we have come to a point where no one else was doing this for us, right? And that leads me to your personal brand, right? Everyone with me till now, right? Thanos was just a segue into helping us think through how storytelling can influence people to think about you in very distinct ways, right? So for all those who said that, hey, listen, I'm happy to trust him. I like him. He seems like a friendly, likable guy. You were not wrong. Okay, you were not wrong. I love Thanos. So I'm with you, right, throughout this. But your personal brand, it starts with you, right? Before you start to talk about your product or your service, I think it's extremely important to know what your personal brand is. And I meet a lot of founders. I meet a lot of people who are in this economy who say, hey, you know what, I'm a very private person and I don't want to speak about myself. All right. Props to you. I love that. I'm a very private person too. But having said that, if you are not ready to champion why you have started in a journey, which is a very complicated journey, it's not an easy journey at all, right? It's a very difficult journey. It's a very tiresome journey, and it's a very lonely journey. Founders are extremely lonely people. Even if you have a co-founder, I completely understand how difficult it is because there's so many decisions to take, and you don't necessarily have someone who's going to help you think through each of those decisions. So it's a very lonely journey. Some of the things that have helped me, and as I mentioned, I used to run an agency for about 10 odd years, 11 years. And one thing was the most difficult part of it was, why am I here? Who am I, right? What is the difference that I'm going to make to people? And I used to ask myself a bunch of these questions, and some of these questions have evolved into product questions. Some of these questions have evolved into service questions. But who are you is an extremely important question. Now, who are you is not an existential question. It's a very practical question. I'm a marketer, right? I'm a marketer. I'm a storyteller. I'm a filmmaker. I do voiceovers. I do a bunch of things. So that's who I am. It's a very practical question. It's a practical way of looking at who you are. Let's not be esoteric about it. Let's not be. It's not Osho asking you. Okay, it's your consumer who's asking you this. कौन हो भाई तुम जो product बना के बैठे हो? क्या कर रहे हो? क्यों कर रहे हो? Right? Which is the second question. क्यों कर रहे हो? Why are you doing what you are doing? Right? Who's Sharad? Right? And Sharad, why are you running this expert thing? Right? So, I mean, if he was to answer this question, don't answer it. Okay? It's for others. But I'm saying, Sharad and I have gone through this exercise, right? And one thing that comes out abundantly is when we let go of a lot of superfluous adjectives in describing who we are, and we come to the actual core of it, we will realize that we are not very complicated human beings, and we have very finite skill sets, and those skill sets inform why we are doing what we are doing. Okay. Who are you speaking to and trying to influence is an extremely important question. So if Sharad today stands up and starts to speak to fitness influencers, or I start to speak to fashion influencers, and both of us unfortunately might not be the best representatives of that particular category, we will realize that we are speaking and trying to influence people who are of no receptiveness to us, right? They're not going to stand up and say, hey, I want fashion gyan from Samriddh, who clearly wears the same blue t-shirt every day, right? So who you are trying to influence and speaking to, try to be as sharp as possible. One thing I realized is, so I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I spend the least amount of time on Instagram. I spend the maximum amount of time on Twitter. I spend just adequate time on LinkedIn. And I get the maximum amount of traction on LinkedIn. I get the least amount of traction on Instagram. And I don't know how Twitter works. Okay, I know I love Twitter. I'm on it. I like what I do there, but it just changes too fast for me, right? So what I have come to understand is my area of influence and my area of expertise is probably speaking to people on LinkedIn. But I've gone through a stage of having created content for each of those areas to realize what I'm good at doing, right? What are you most confident about? I'm most confident about telling a story, helping founders, building businesses. I am extremely confident about looking through products and figuring out what's a core differentiation if there is one. And I'm very confident about design and communication. That's what I'm confident about. Anything that steps outside that area, I might have an influence, but I might not be able to drive the same degree of confidence back to conversations, right? Why is it interesting to others? You are here because you want to create something meaningful and you're in a journey to create something meaningful, or you already created something meaningful and you want to scale it up, right? Those are the only three reasons why you're here. If whatever I say adds even an iota bit value back to your Saturday and a Sunday, and you think through your product or yourself differently, it might just be interesting to you. I would assume that, right? Is it something unique to me? I would assume so. I hope people don't boot me out by the end of it. So if I survive this, then maybe it's unique to me. And if not, then I will know that I'm not very good at it. Are people willing to spend time listening to you? Now, this is a question that you need to ask yourself when you are speaking to potential investors, potential people you're going to hire as part of your leadership or your management. Even if you're hiring an intern, you have to ask yourself this question: is someone willing to listen to you and listen to your story, right? Because that's super important. If they're not willing to, then what are you doing? If people are not willing to listen to you, then what are you doing? You're advertising. Advertising sucks. No one cares for it, right? It's dead. But can you have a meaningful conversation with someone about what you are doing, and will that make them willing to listen to you? Absolutely, right? Remember when I started by saying that filmmaking is a very one-sided medium, in which case you're not engaging people in the act of the building, right? You're only engaging people after it's being built and you put it out there. Radio again has now started to become a two-way medium where you can get people onto a call. But every time we post something on social media, it's so bloody open. Everything is open, right? So if people are willing to spend time listening to you, then you should also be willing to spend time listening to people. Do you have a unique way of saying something that you do? Because this is going to come back to you towards the workshop piece, which is what's so unique about you, right? When Bindya started speaking and she said, there isn't enough information for me, that was a unique way of looking at it, because everyone else was looking at it only a certain way, but Bindya stood up and she said something that's different. So maybe her point of view at that moment was very unique, and which is all that there is. It goes back to what we do today, which was different. So today, Bindya's point of view in a much larger cohort was unique, and I think that's fantastic, right? And who else says the same about you? I'm assuming that as founders, you're going to have people who are going to stand up and cheer for you. You're going to have your teammates who are going to cheer for you. You might have investors who are going to cheer for you. And do they say the same thing about you? Do they describe you the same way that you wrote who you are? And that's a very important piece, right? Does your current stakeholder ecosystem describe you the same way that you said who you are and why you are doing what you're doing? And that's important, because more people, when they say it the same way that you have decided how you want to be represented, is how the world will think of you, right? So what does that mean? That means that you'll first go back and write very clearly who you are. You have to first write very clearly why you're doing what you're doing, right? Cool. Everyone with me till now, right? So this was about your personal brand. This was about, Sharad, I'm sorry. I see a lot of chats. Are there any questions for me?
No, so just thumbs up. People just on the video.
Oh, okay, awesome. Right, excellent. No, listen, I mean, feel free to also just leave some questions there or anecdotes, comments. I'm just not checking the chat, but Sharad and Jacqueline are. Okay. Hey, listen, let's come down to the product piece, right? We are all here because we make products. That's what we are really good at doing. Maybe some of us are tech people. I'm not. But if you have tech product, the same logic might apply to you, okay? This, in certain sections, applies to tech products, but this doesn't apply to tech products in the most common sense of it. So I'm sorry if you were a B2B or a SaaS product, which I'm assuming you're not, because then you might not be part of the D2C cohort. But if you are, and if you have a tech enablement piece in your product, I'm happy to have an offline chat with you in what is the right communication framework for a tech product. But this communication framework applies to CPG products mostly, right? So I just want to put that caveat out there before I get tech questions through this thing, right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Samriddh, what is CPG product?
Consumer packaged goods.
Okay. Consumer packaged goods.
It's essentially anything that goes from a factory to a shelf, but it goes in a package form, which goes through its own supply chain methodology, right? So there are going to be different costs attached to it. So the CPG industry can also have an FMCG industry, which is the fast-moving consumer goods piece. But in D2C, because we make less and we put out far more niche products, the CPG term can be used also. All right. All right. So your product, I'm going to assume this, and it's a safe assumption because I did go through most of your websites. But most of us say right now, we have on-trend ingredients, we have fantastic material, our design is amazing, or if you're a fashion product, then our fit is great. Okay. Most of us here in this cohort have a sustainability story or an impact on community story or an impact on the environment story. Great. What we also have, unfortunately, are extremely generic statements, statements that probably don't make me remember who you are. Okay. And because we're always challenged by how do we make sure that we hire amazing designers or spend money on creating content. So what ends up happening is a lot of the imagery that you end up seeing becomes fairly cookie cutter because, we go to Pinterest, we'll find a bunch of references, the echo chamber gets built. And then before you know it, you end up making those content pieces which seem very similar to each other. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just putting it out there that's the world we live in. That's the world we are operating in right now. And some of us have also used design as an enabler for differentiation, right? I mean, case in point would be the that's going to be another conversation. I don't know how to pronounce the brand, but I love the packaging, right? And I think the Cube has an interesting packaging piece also. So I'm sorry, I'm just taking names of brands that I thought had very interesting design principles. But design as an enabler for differentiation is also a good space to be in, right? But that's what most of us say right now, right? You might be saying different things also. That's okay. I might not have covered all of this in this. But these are 4 broad areas which are common, right? So if I have to take common denominators across, these are probably the 4. Why this is a problem is the fact that we end up becoming everything to everyone. And that's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a problem because we don't have the money to speak to everyone. We don't have the time or the patience to speak to everyone. We probably don't even have a team large enough to come and speak to everyone and understand everyone else's unique needs or unique requirements or unique sort of desires, right? We don't know that. So we don't know how to make people feel special if we don't know who are those specific people, right? So we end up speaking to everyone, and that becomes a bit of a challenge. We end up thinking of people as blocks. So a lot of times when I am getting investment requests or those decks that come in, they say our target audience is 18 to 24, 24 to 35, women in metros, upwardly mobile, have these kind of devices, and spend this kind of time on watching OTT content. And I'm like, dude, that just doesn't make sense. You just essentially turned a complete human being into a block. And so this is it, right? She's defined by her age. She's defined by what she watches. She's defined by what kind of devices she has, and she's defined by the kind of income she has. That's not true. I don't feel the same way today that I felt yesterday. And I am most likely not going to feel the same way tomorrow. Right after this, I am heading to a fairly complicated meeting where I am going to be a very different person because it's financial negotiation. So I'm going to be a completely different person in that meeting. We are different across different stages and days and time being and time frames. And why that is superbly important for direct to consumer brands to realize is that if you can tell me a story that adds value to me as I am a different person throughout, that kind of value is what we really need to drive through. Okay, and I'll come to that as an example in a bit. But this is something that Sharad and I were going through a list yesterday, and I said, why there's so many products which just seem very similar to the last cohort that we did, where there were similar products there also, right? So now what's happening is that there is a certain amount of product that's coming into the market where a lot of things might seem that you've seen it before, right? And this is the reality that we're living with right now. So I'm just pointing out realities as of now. But let's try and flip it a little bit. Okay, so we're going to flip this, and this is where it starts to get interesting. We're going to flip this, and we're going to say, we won't speak about content ingredients, maybe we won't speak about the material, we won't speak about the design, we won't speak about the form, unless we have a framework to put it under, right? Now, this is not a framework that I've created. This is a framework that I've evolved over a period of time. This is a framework that Unilever has used for many, 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 many years. They did not have one big component in this, which I have added. And the way they were looking at this framework, I have changed it a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through the framework. But I would sincerely request you that every time now that you go back and you think of product and you think of service, or you think of the way you're building your brand, you put it in this framework, right? And try to see what's unique and try to see if there's a story that comes out of it. Most cases, there's a story that comes out of it. Here's the model, okay? The model is form, function, formulation, and feel, okay? It's just these four things. It's simple, it's easy. Form is essentially, do you have a disproportionate advantage in the form of the product, okay? Assuming that you're solving a problem that is not new to this world, someone in this world would have tried to solve that problem already. There are no new problems that have been discovered in the last 7 to 10 years in the D2C environment that have not ideally been solved by big food or big pharma in some or the other way. Right? Very, very few problems that might be absolutely new last decade level problems. Other than COVID, I'm not taking that. That's a separate piece altogether, right? But 99.99% of the problems that D2C people, and by people, I don't mean just products. I mean people as in people who are creators, people who are manufacturers, people who are in the stakeholder ecosystem, investors, so on and so forth. The problem that we as people are solving for other people, most of these problems have already in some or the other form been addressed by big food, big pharma, big tech across. What is your disproportionate advantage in the form of the product that you bring in? I'll give you an example. At Akiva Superfoods, when we had started, we used to make Ayurvedic juices. And instead of putting it in a big bottle, we started to put it in a test tube, right? It was just a packaging form, but that became a massive market differentiator, okay? Gummies, till about 3-4 years back, was a very interesting form factor, which had a certain amount of, uniqueness to it, right? Melt in your mouth strips have also had a certain amount of form factor differentiation, and it remains so for the next 2-3 years, right? Till a new form does not come in. But is there a disproportionate advantage in the form of the product that you're bringing, right? And the form could also be just something as basic as someone has a bottle of pickle. Always pickle is open from the top and you scoop it out with a spoon. Here you have essentially just changed the way it can be poured out so that it can be more portable, maybe, right? I'm just laying out a few examples that it will help you think through it, right? Function, is there a new functional benefit that you can speak of, right? And for example, I use a Veli night gummy. It's a very nice functional benefit. I don't know if it's placebo or not, but it does help me sleep better, right? And it's become habit. So now, because it's become habit, I have started to have it. Cool, no? Nice alliteration there. So for me, is there a functional benefit? Then I would love to have you think through the functional benefit that you have in your product. But is it a disproportionate functional benefit which someone else does not have? Is there a formulation change that you have done that makes life better? Now, I have intentionally chosen things like makes life better. Many years back, I was working on this project with Unilever, where what they had done was they had reduced the amount of suds that are made when you use a soap. You know what happens when there is a lot of suds when you use a soap? It takes more water to wash it off. So what they had done is they had reduced the amount of suds that get formed. So hence, you use less water to wash it. So the formulation was actually helping people save water when they were washing things. I thought that was fantastic, right? That was absolutely brilliant. Because what you've thought through is not just the formulation of the product to make the product more effective. Of course, the product was effective, but you've thought through the downstream impact of usage of that product. Now, remember, we are here in a session which is a storytelling session. Each of these things, if you can pen down really well for your products or the service that you have, and turn that into communication that sits on your website or on your product packaging or on your social media, that is going to be a game changer for you, right? You're probably doing it in some form, but what you've not done is you've not put it in this framework. You've not put it in a form differentiation, disproportionate advantage from that, functional differentiation and an advantage from that, formulation change that has made life better. Has it made life better for people who are consuming it, for people who are using it, for people who are distributing it? Has it made life better for a lot of people across the value chain, right? And it's a value chain that we create. So let's understand that if that formulation has made life better. And finally, the one part that I have added, and I think it's absolutely critical, goes back to the first statement that I made, which is how will you make your customers feel? How do they feel? How do people feel after they have bought from you, right? Do they feel smart? Do they feel that they have taken a very intelligent decision? Do they feel happy? Do they feel happy because they feel smart? Do they feel happy and they feel smart, but at the same time they feel that shit, I should have paid something less? Or do they end up feeling that I have paid the right price and that's a very intelligent decision? Or do they feel I've got the best product in the world, so it doesn't matter what price I've paid, right? So we have to be super articulate about how will someone feel after using your product, after buying your product and after using your product. Sometimes it's not the same set of people, right? You end up buying it, but you don't really end up using it. So in both cases, we can actually break it down into how will someone feel after buying it or after using it. That would be super helpful, right? So this is a model that I have found super interesting. I've applied it to every business I've worked with. Thankfully, most of those businesses have done well. So I don't have a reason to go back and say this model doesn't work. But if you feel that there is something that we can add onto this model as we move ahead, feel free to do so and let me know, please. It's super important for me to keep evolving this model. I try to keep models simple. Otherwise, I think complex models don't work. Simple models work, right? So form, function, formulation, feel. Those are the four things that we most definitely want to think about when we're thinking about a product differentiation, right? If you have not seen this film, please do see it. I know it's not going to play for my system. I've tried it a million times, but this document will be shared with you. Please do watch this film. This was the first film that Bajaj made for its Adventure series. The reason why it's there is because I loved the bike. I had the bike, so it's a little bit of an old passion piece. But more importantly, in an industry which was only speaking of 80 kilometers to a liter to 120 kilometers to a liter, here came a brand which spoke about first how you're going to feel, and then broke it down into everything else, right? So if we start with how you're going to feel, then we'll know what to break it down into, right? And that's super important. So constantly as storytellers and as brand custodians, as brand creators, as business leaders, you have to go back to how do you want people to feel about your product, about you, and about the brand that they're consuming, right?
Samriddh, if you want, Binay has a question she would like to ask you.
Yeah. Is it there in the chat?
No, she'll unmute herself and ask.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hey, Binay.
Hey, I just wanted to ask why you have kept it as how will someone feel after using this? Because when you're doing a storytelling on your website, and it's also to get new customers, so you want them to feel something while they are reading your story, seeing your ads and things like that, right? Why have you framed it as only how does someone feel after using it?
The thing is, you have to write about how they will feel after they use it, and that is what you need to bring up front.
Oh, okay.
So when I come onto your website, if you can't tell me how I will feel after I end up using it, then I will never end up saying it.
Okay.
So
don't just suppose scenario. You have to feel also.
You have to. So yours is skincare, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So how do you think people are going to feel after they use one of your marquee products? Are they going to feel that they have nourished their skin more, which is a generic term, but is there something specific that they can feel, right? I'll give you an example. Okay. I work very closely with this brand called Arata. They do hair products, and I mean, they do a lot of skincare and hair care products, but they have this very interesting product which is for curly hair, right? Um, and one of the things that we tried to do was put on their website straight up that how would a curly hair woman feel after she has used the gel, right? And one of the words that kept coming back over and over again through our research was control, right? Because curly hair apparently is very uncontrollable, and it becomes very difficult to handle on most days because you just end up tying it up in a bun and you leave it. But because the word control came so many times, we were able to build on that. So now when someone would come to the Rata website and they would go through that curly hair solution piece, they would find control as a mechanism, but it's also to set you free, right? So it's not just control in terms of, hey, it gets sticky, but it enables you to do a lot of other things through the day because it enables you to control your hair in the most in the nicest way possible, right? So if you know how people are going to feel, or if you have a clear sense of how you want people to feel after they use your product, bring that up front, write about it. Make sure that you're describing it very clearly. You know, cars do that, right? They say you're going to get a sense of luxury every time you start to sort of sit in that car. Bikes do it by saying there's a sense of power. Footwear does it by giving you a sense of comfort. Nutrition products do it by telling you about energy and vitality and all of it, right? So how do you want people to feel after using the product needs to be pulled up as the central point communication so that they know what they are going to buy into. People buy into feelings. We are all extremely irrational human beings and we rationalize our purchases, right? We don't need most of the things that we do, that we buy. We actually just end up making very emotionally driven, impulse driven purchases, and then we rationalize by saying, नहीं यार ये तो जरूरत थी इसकी, बहुत अच्छा लगता है इसके साथ. It's one of those things where if you can get a sense of what people will feel, then do bring that up. Binay, I don't know if that answers your question.
It did. Thank you so much.
Okay, not at all. All right, the brand story. I'm little cognizant of time, so I'm going to move through this really quickly. A brand's a living being. The brand is not branding. Your brand is not your logo only. Your brand is not the packaging only. Your brand is not just what you put as maybe your website or a hoarding or a newspaper ad or a flyer or a leaflet or whatever it is, right? It's not just that, okay? Your brand is a living, breathing entity. Your brand is every time you post something on social media and you write something. Your brand is the way you communicate with your customers. Your brand is the way you communicate with stakeholders. Your brand is your employee base. Your brand is your family. The people who have stood by you when you were creating something. Your brand is us, this room. We are all your brand because we are going to speak about you when we walk out, right? So tomorrow, if someone wants me to speak of, hey, who are the cool people who are doing interesting things in the reduce industry, I should be able to bring out this list and say, these are the right set of people who are doing some really fun things. And, you know, they're really, really trustworthy and look at what they're doing, right? So every person whom we engage with is a brand representative for us. So if you were to break this down, you have to find the brand voice that they will resonate with. Remember when I went to the first piece, which is how are people going to speak of you? It's the same way, how are people going to speak of your brand, right? How are people going to speak about what you do? But to get people to speak about it, you need to first speak about it, right? People will not know what to say if you don't really know what you need to say. And Sharad used this word saying premier pet care brand. I hate using the word premier. Thank you so much for using it. We are not premier. We aren't. No, we are not. We are a thoughtful brand, right? So, and we've chosen those words carefully, right? There's a difference between being a premium brand, and a thoughtful brand. We've chosen the word thoughtful because a lot of care, a lot of attention to detail, and a lot of deliberate design goes into creating products from heads of tails. And that's what brings me to this piece, which is how do you find your brand voice? As a brand, as a person, which is how would you be as a person? So today, if I'm just looking at who I see on my screen, I'm just going to, okay, so for example, Cube Club, right? Cube Club makes fitness devices, right? Correct, Pratik? Hi, really like what you do, man. They make fitness devices. They have modular fitness devices. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that? Or do you want to tell people what you do?
No, I would have said Premier, which is what I need to change saying.
Yeah, so see, Premier doesn't say much, but I went through your site and realized you have modularity in terms of the way your devices are, which enables me to build on top of what I really want. I think it's very plug and play. It's very customized to my lifestyle. People live in different kinds of housing conditions. So I think the Cube Club is able to solve for it well. So maybe that's one of the things that you should bring into your narrative. But as a person, Pratik looks like he works out. So Pratik has a certain character. He has a certain attitude to this. And when Pratik wants to speak about the Cube Club, he has to be a representative of that brand himself, right? And how do we speak of Pratik, or how do we speak of the brand is going to be a reflection of that piece. How is your brand as a product or a service? We are there to solve problems. It's very functional, but is there an emotional attribute that makes your brand interesting, right? I'll give you an example. WakeFit is a classic example where they say, as a brand, which is a product or service, we are a very trustworthy brand. So we're going to give you this 100-day return policy, right? Or Uniqlo, for example, go back and change. I mean, no questions asked, right? As long as you have the bill and as long as you have the tag with you, just go back and change it whenever you sort of want to come in, right? These are services and these are product brands that enable you to drive a certain amount of confidence because of the way they service people, right? So there's a service orientation to it. You might want to see how you end up bringing that into your brand piece. As a people and community, classic example is us at Heads of Hotels. Our brand is a community brand, right? We don't advertise in the most traditional sense of it. And the entire brand was actually built on the back of a community, which is a pet parents community. And I think that is brilliant, because what we enable that community to do is engage with each other, learn from each other, have fun speaking to each other. We bring them in together for events and activities, and we make sure that there are shared experiences, right? So when I speak of my community at Heads of Hotels, I use this word, which is the shared experiences piece, a lot, right? Brand is a company. How are we? Are we a fun, new age, innovative brand? Sure, maybe we're all obligated to because we're in the B2C industry. But at the same time, are we a conscious brand? Are we a thoughtful brand? As I mentioned, Heads of Hotels is a thoughtful brand. Right? So, and why are we thoughtful? Well, just literally, I'm going to go to the logic of the word. We think through your problems. We spend an inordinate amount of time thinking through what makes a difference to a pet parent's life, right? And we care deeply for it. And we choose very specific things that add value back to pet parents, right? Now, does that work with your brand in some form? Is there something that you can say that as a company, we are this, right? And will people outside say the same thing, right? So, for example, will people outside for Bindya's company, will they say that it's a skincare brand, which is deeply meaningful, right? Or sustainably driven? I don't know, Bindya. I mean, you will of course have a different way of looking at the brand. I'm just trying to bring in different aspects of how you can look at telling your story, right? So going from the form, function, formulation, feel aspect, which is more product driven, here is your brand narrative, which is how is your brand as an individual, how is it as a service, how is it as a community, and what you want to do with that community, and how is it as a company. How you are as a company will probably inform a lot of the other things, by the way, right? Because you are the sum total of a lot of people who work with you. And that is one of the biggest things that you need to define very early on in D2C companies. Because we're all starting off small, we end up thinking that, hey, it's just 3 people. I don't really have to describe how my company is. And that is fine. maybe to a certain stage, maybe the 0 to 1, it's fine. But the moment you go from 1 to a 10, you will realize that it's extremely important for you to have a very clear definition of how you are as an organization. And that's one of the things, by the way, I have seen as a big struggle throughout, because we started by saying we're an innovative company, but then you realize that there's only so much innovation that you can drive through the product line, right? You can't keep innovating through and through. So suddenly you go from being an extremely innovative company to not so. And then what's the cultural change that happens within the organization? The first set of people who joined you, they joined you because they thought that you were making an absolutely brilliant set of innovative products, right? You were the next best thing to bread and butter. And then over a period of time, you stopped being innovative because you can't innovate anymore. The market doesn't allow you to innovate anymore. Your mind doesn't allow you to innovate anymore. Production lines don't allow you to innovate anymore. You can have incremental innovation, but you can't have disruptive innovation. But you started as a disruptive innovation organization. So you described yourself as a disruptive innovator. But that's probably not something that you can keep building for the next 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. So is that a good space to be in? Most likely not, right? Because you lose people, you lose customers, and someone else is going to come and say, guess what? They were innovative at some point, but now I have the best thing that you can get. And that puts your organization, that puts you, that puts your team in an extremely uncomfortable position. So when you use words like premium, for example, what's premium today might not be premium tomorrow, Prateek, right? You might not be able to charge a premium at the stage that we are in right now. So maybe premium is not the best way to look at describing what probably has far more functional and far more long-term value, descriptions to it, right? And that's why this becomes important when you think through it, and when you look at it from a perspective that, is this going to be true for me even 2 years down the line? Then maybe you'll start to choose words which are different, which means that you'll start to hire differently, which means you'll start to describe yourself differently, which means your website's going to start looking very different because you'll start to get more real about who you are, right? And that's a good stage to be in. For example, we dropped the words. So at Bombay Shaving, we had this. We dropped the words organic from a lot of things. We realized that one, there is no way that we can be organic throughout our product line. So we just don't want to do it, right? It was a differentiation in the market, but we chose not to take that. We also started to drop words like naturally created. We realized that, again, it's not a differentiation in the market. And we can't always be naturally created. There are things that need chemicals. We'll just be more conscious about the choices of the chemicals that we make, but it can't be natural. That took so much pressure off the product team. That took so much pressure off the supply chain. It took so much pressure off marketing that we were able to tell people why this product is really important for you. Instead of trying to always go back and solve for organic and natural and sustainability and all of it, which are all important pieces, but not always can you solve for it. So I'm taking very specific examples, but it's also to encourage you to think through. It might be prudent to think about these things at this stage. I was going through the stage cycles of a lot of you, and I think at this stage, it's good for you to have this, what I consider to be a certain amount of a reality check. And that's the reason I'm here, right? I mean, it's not a sugarcoat, but it's also to help you think through what you might be able to do better, right? I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to have some water. And I think there is a lot of queries. Do you want to shoot the queries across to me? Anyone can go.
Yeah, okay. Soumya, you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going back to that melting strips example you gave.
Yeah.
About the differentiation of the form, right? So in that melting strips example, or for example, in our case, right, we took the same shampoo experience and create shampoo bars because our goal is to reduce plastic. And we want people to not go through the whole process of, oh, I'm going to recycle it, because the truth, nobody really segregates waste in India. And to recycle stuff is a nightmare. And yes, it's not happening. So how do we cut it from the scratch, right? Now, the challenge which I face, and why I'm coming to the melting strips example, is when you change the form, there is an initial adoption pushback.
100%.
But once the pushback is overcome and the person realizes that, hey, this is exactly the same as what I would have been using in a regular, whatever I was using before, then they have this aha feeling of, I've done something for the world, I've reduced this, there's less plastic in my bathroom, etc. But when you're changing the form, that initial breaking point is very difficult. So how do you sort of overcome that in, whether it's storytelling? Do you sort of use existing people who are real people who have had that aha moment of that change? Because what we see for us is we see a lot of word of mouth, and again, it's the community that believes in it and wants to do something about it, right? But to the breaking in is the challenging part. So changing form, and how do you sort of overcome the perception of a new form through storytelling is what I want to understand.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. I think the fact that you've started doing this, there's a reason for it, right? The reason is that less plastic, more consciousness about the environment, maybe a healthier choice. I don't know, right?
So I started a retreat in the mountains, and people used to come, those minis that you get in most of the bathrooms and stuff of hotels. So even we did stock them. I won't deny that. And when we started reordering it, and when people used to consume that 5 ml small bottle and just throw it, then we realized, oh my God, we are the ones who have to separate this trash and figure out how to dispose this off. And in the mountains, there is no Carter beach cleanups, nothing. You have to put yourself, you can't burn it and all of that. So that was obviously one wake-up point for us to do what we do. And we said, okay, fine. If we remove all of this, we can remove distilleries, we can remove this. How do we also change this form?
I'm actually going through Instagram while you're speaking to me. So I'm also going through Instagram at the same time. Yeah.
So, and then we started looking at everything that we consume, whether it's a face wash, whether it's a, shampoo, it's a conditioner. I have a dog. So we've recently been figuring out how to
person in the room.
talk. I've been testing our products on my dog, right? So, so the thing is that, but the breaking point is a difficult part is, so that's how we basically, you asked me the question as you must have started it because of some reason. That was an awakening point for us.
Yeah.
It has helped us drastically become a more eco-friendly retreat now. And then came the idea of HO. So how do you break storytelling when
you don't actually tell that story? You're not telling that story on your Instagram.
Yeah, we're not.
I'm just
terrible job.
Yeah. So I'm just realizing that whatever you just told me, why isn't there a video of you just saying it and it's there? You are the founder, right?
Yeah.
So why don't I see a single post on your IG which literally tells me this story?
It's a brilliant question, maybe because I'm a mom co-founder, barely managed to survive my day.
It took you less than a minute and a half to tell me all of this.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
That's literally all you need to do. Listen, you just told me a story that tells me that you took care of people. You took care of the environment. You took care of where you operate. You're a mother. You have a deeply rooted sense of what is right and what is wrong. As to fathers, okay, so it's not, I'm not taking that away, but as parents, I think we have become far more conscious about the choices that we make, right? At least I have become. I have an 11-year-old son, and I think I have become far more conscious about the choices that we end up making. And all of that reflects on our daily lives. And what you just told me in a minute and a half, I have scrolled through your entire feed. What you just told me in that minute and a half is so much more powerful than all these images of these products, because I mean, they're great, but they don't tell me anything. They don't tell me why I should look at you. They don't tell me why should I pick you up and buy. In fact, instead of saying proudly made in Uttarakhand, India, eco-friendly and sustainable products, sulfate, paraben-free skincare and hair care, all that is great, but those are just keywords. You're not doing keyword stuffing here, right? You don't necessarily need to solve for SEO on Instagram. What you need to solve for on Instagram is when someone comes in, they see that, hey, it was made by Soumya, who's a mom to someone, and she cares about her child's future, and she's making this because she wants a child to grow up in a mountain which is not riddled with plastic, and a child who's going to grow up being able to look at nature in the most welcoming way without us being destroying it. So it's just a very small conscious step that you take towards changing your behavior, right? But that's not here. So you've told me a story. Just tell that story here, yeah. And all these influencers that you've got in, and all these people who are creating content for you, I'm looking at them. Just tell them the same story. You don't have to tell the product. You don't have to sell the product. The product will sell. If it's priced well, if it looks good, if it's packaged well, which it is, it'll sell. You don't tell me what a shampoo bar does, and a shampoo bar is supposed to clean my hair and clean my scalp. Clearly. Otherwise, don't call it a shampoo bar, right? And it is going to do that. But what you have to tell me over and over and over and over again is Soumya's story, which is something that's missing here. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense, but I don't think you have to disrupt the market. You just have to be honest with the market.
I think we just get sucked into using the right keywords, and I think that's what I'm sort of absorbing out of what you just said.
It's dead. That entire philosophy is dead. There's no more SEO in this world, by the way. So it doesn't matter. Oh, by the way, if any SEO company ever approaches you, just tell them SEO is dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. But listen, I'm not going to take any more questions right now because I have 30 minutes. And I really want us to spend more time on building something. Okay. So I can stretch at 30 to about a 45, Sharad. But I do have a hard stop at 11:15, 100%. And it's never enough time for the session, I've realized. So maybe we should do like a half-day thing at some point, okay? So listen, I'm going to actually, I'm not going to skip this. This is important, okay? This is the story architecture for Heads Up for Tails, okay? And this is an important piece. This actually goes to what Soumya just mentioned, which is the problem gap in the world that inspired you to build something. What is your, and you can start with your personal also, right? So what is your core impact objective? What kind of company and product are you? What the community does, and finally, what as a customer one will get out of it? And what is the reason to stick? That's broadly it. Now I'll tell you how we write this for Heads Up for Tails. Okay, I'm just going to read this out, see if it makes sense. In 2007, and this is all true, huh? All of this is true, by the way. Not one word is not true. In 2007, the pet care market in India hadn't evolved as fast as the rest of the world. Rashi, who's our founder, Rashi Naran, she was a globally traveled pet parent, and she wanted a cozy bed and healthy, clean food for Sarah, her golden retriever. It was actually Sarah's birthday. She went out to look for things for Sarah on her birthday. She didn't find anything. She realized that there was no organized market for pet care, and everything was either imported or made in terribly unhygienic conditions, because pets weren't considered important enough by local food or accessories market at that moment. So we're talking about 2007, right? In 2007, maximum you could get was a dog biscuit or a rawhide bone, all of which was made in absolutely terrible conditions. Unable to find anything in the market, she decided to make things on her own. She dedicated time to endless research, which is true, product prototyping, rejecting what was readily available in the market. Now, do you see this here? Rejecting what was readily available in the market is such an important piece for us. We, by the way, even on a website, we don't list a lot of things. You'll never find a choke collar on a website, for example, right? You will never find a muzzle on a website. These are not things that we endorse. So we reject things, right? Rejecting what was readily available in the market. They were pushing the boundaries of the pet care industry or pet industry at that time. Huff was born with just 3 products and a vision to change the world. Today, Huff is a trusted destination. We're no longer just a product company, by the way. Now we have become a full-scale destination. So of the products that we make, that's an important piece. We'll continue to make so, but we are a full-scale destination. We are built by a team of pet behaviorists, vets. These are people who consult with us, help us make our products, product scientists, grooming specialists, nutritionists. We have designers, volunteers who are all pet parents. And our community brings together the art and science of pet care. Okay. Now, there's a reason why there's an art and science of pet care, because to care for someone, It requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of enablement, and we believe that art and science helps that. We are committed, and this is where I go back to what is our core impact. We are committed to making your journey of being a pet parent as enjoyable, stress-free, and nurturing as we can. Right? We have not used the word easy, by the way, anywhere. Pet parenting is not easy. Okay. If you have dogs or cats, you will know it is not easy to be a pet parent. But can we make it a little bit more enjoyable? Can we reduce the stress just a little bit? Can we make it a little more nurturing and convenient for you? We believe that pets are a family, and families genuinely deserve the best. We have pet grooming services across our 50 stores, a website with over 5,000 products, and we have consciously chosen those products which are good for your pet. We don't bring you anything that we wouldn't give our own pets. So Soumya, imagine that that's the story, right? So I'm just going back to what you said. You are making shampoo bars that you are very happy that your child is using. It's a very powerful statement. It's more powerful than, by the way, any influencer sitting in Mumbai or Delhi using those products. If a child is using those products, then you know that it is so safe and so good that I can bring it for myself. Right? So that's the conviction that we need to show in our product. So if we don't bring you anything that we won't give our own pets. And the last piece, which is honestly the brand philosophy, which is while you might come to us for the love of your family, we know that you will grow with love from ours. Because for us, the way we hire, even at Heads of Hotels, is we only hire pet parents. We don't hire anyone else. So our entire, now we are about a 750, 800 odd member team. They're only pet parents. Okay, so I think for all you know, we probably have the largest number of pet parents in the country who work with us. So it's like that, right? So this is it. What was the problem gap that you were facing, that you were trying to fill? What challenges did you face? For example, you might not have had ready-made supply. You might not have a packaging. Please tell your customer that. Please tell your customer what are the challenges that you faced while you were making your product. What did you address? What did you make, which is extremely important. Where are you today? What is your continued commitment? What are the claims that you can have in your products? And what should the consumer feel? I keep going back to this feel piece. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if that's the only big takeaway from all of this. Today, if there is one thing that you have to solve for, is how do you make your customer feel? Right? Forget about everything else. Everything else becomes extremely irrelevant. How you make them feel throughout this is extremely important. Right? I'm going to quickly move through this because right after this section, we move into the workshop. Right, and I hope that you've taken some notes because a lot of them are going to come back and be useful for you at the workshop itself. First is, and this is classic story farming. This is when you are thinking through writing for your website or write for your investor deck. Do think about it like this: what is our point of view in the world? Right. For example, Nike believes that everyone can be an athlete. Apple believes everyone can be a creator. Cadbury believes that any celebration is incomplete without a chocolate. Right, or a sweet, either way. What is our point of view in the world? So what is the point of view that, let's say, the fitness people have, right, in this? Is it that everyone can become fitter? It's a strong point of view, right? Now, does everyone in the fitness cohort that we have here feel the same way? Then there is no bias. Because if everyone feels the same way, then there is no bias, right? So you have to figure out that what is that one degree of nuance that you can bring to your bias, right? So what is our point of view in that world? Why is this life altering or culture setting? That's kind of important to know. How do you want a community to feel after they consume our content, or when they are consuming the content? What is it that we give that no one else can? It's such an important question. I've asked so many founders this, that what is it that you have that no one else can give at this very moment? A lot of them come back and say it's a product, and then I open up a website which has extremely similar products. So it's clearly not the product, right? It has to be something else. Is it the experience? And don't say discount, please. We are not we are not going to build discount brands. Okay, please don't say that ever. Like if the conversation starts with I can give a deeper discount, then please don't waste your time. Don't waste everyone else's time. Don't build discounting businesses. They're terrible for everyone's health. They're terrible for the ecosystem. They're just terrible for business in general. So please, I can't keep emphasizing on that enough. But what is it that we can give that no one else can? I think most of it comes down to how we want them to feel again, right? It comes down to the experience. It comes down to integrity. It comes down to honesty. It comes down to trust. It comes down to believability, relatability. It'll come down to that form, function, formulation, and that feel piece, right? So what is that we can give them that no one else can? And it's an important question. You should ask yourself this. I'm very scared whenever I ask myself this question, that if you were to shut down today, what will people miss? And it's a very scary question, because more often than not, the answer is nothing. And that's the truth. Most people won't miss shit if we shut down, right? It's a hard fact of life. But the fact is that if anytime in your journey, you can arrive at that one point when you say, people are really going to miss this if I'm not here. Do you know how iconic that will be for your business and for you, right? So today, if Zomato shuts down, and it's not like I like a lot of the things that they do, that's a separate piece. I'm not one for Q-commerce. I don't like the 10-minute food delivery piece and all of it. I've spoken up against it multiple times. But I do believe that if today some of these organizations were to shut down, which have solved or created large-scale problems and then solved them, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs, so people will miss them. A lot of people are going to not find convenience, so people will miss them. But notice how I have not said discounted food, right? So discoverability will be a problem. Can the D2C industry, or can, as founders, we all safely stand up and say there is something specific that we are creating that people will miss if we are not here? More often than not, I don't have an answer for that as yet, for almost all the businesses that we have run. Actually, after many years, I found that with Heads Up, by the way, genuinely, okay, not because I've worked there, but one thing we have realized is that if we were to shut down, a lot of people end up missing some of the specific things that we make. But having said that, we are also very cognizant that someone else will come and make them very, very quickly. So there has to be something else, right? Important question. Maybe you don't have an answer for it, or maybe the answer is nothing at this moment. So cool. I'm going to pause. We're at 10:35. Sharad, we will have 15 minutes maximum. Okay. Sorry. This is the workshop that we need to do. Okay. In fact, all of this I'm going to remove for now. Not needed. Okay. Sorry. Sharad, can you see all the 4 questions at one go?
Yeah, get who to do what. Why should they do that? How will we tell them this, and why will they trust what we say?
Excellent. Okay. So listen, it's this. Sharad, what were the 3 companies we had picked? One was...
We've picked...
Yeah, please.
So we've picked DU. It's into personal beauty, personal care. We picked Soul Baby Carriers, and we put the Earth Collective. Again,
yes.
Okay, but around here. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Reason why we picked them is because I'm aware that there is a personal story in each of those. That's number one. I think they're all in interesting challenger categories, or categories that have probably not become as prevalently popular as one can imagine. And third, I think, if I'm not wrong, 2 are women founders. Or
actually, all three
of them founders. Excellent. Yes. I'm sorry, I have a bias towards women founders. I think men have had it easy for years. Okay, so here's where we are. Okay, when you enter the breakout room, you will be assigned to one of the breakout rooms. When you enter the breakout room, the founder or whoever is representing the organization will be there, and their job is to work with you to answer these 4 questions. And I'm going to go through different breakout rooms. So I'm going to jump through them. I'm going to jump through the 3. The first question is, get who to do what? Okay, it sounds very simple. Get who to do what? It's super complicated. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, for Starbucks, get Indians to choose coffee. India was a tea drinking nation. We're looking at a cultural shift. right? We're looking at a huge scale shift. Okay. So Starbucks, Barista, Cafe Coffee Day, all of them came in and they said that, hey, here is where I need to change behavior, I need to change mindsets, right? So I'm getting tea drinkers to choose coffee. Okay. Problem doesn't get easier for tea drinkers because Tata Tea comes in or someone else comes in or our friends here who run tea businesses, they come in and they say, get tea drinkers to choose green tea. Okay. So one is a replacement category. Another one is inside a category you're getting people to choose better. With me till now? You have to be very clear about who and what you want them to do. This is your entire business philosophy, by the way. This is the reason why you started. Okay. Why should they do it? Why should a tea drinker move to coffee? We have all grown up having chai, by the way. Okay. मेरे घर में तो coffee नहीं बनता था. ये जब से, we started getting into this entire corporate shebang, we started to have a bunch of coffee, which now I'm being told is not good for you, but I still fucking like it. But the fact is, why should people do what you expect them to do? And be super honest here. Okay. So for example, for Heads Up for Tails, we said get pet parents to choose. We're not even saying buy, right? To choose superior quality and better designed products for their pets. We're not even saying spend more, buy at half, none of it. Remember, in the top sentence, there is no brand. It's behavior. Okay, look at it. Get pet parents to choose superior quality and better designed products for their pets. I don't care if they buy it at Heads Up for Tails or they buy it from someone else. That's fine. It's up to them. Okay. Why should they do it? Because a pet parent loves their pets. Let's assume that that's the first piece. Thinks of them as family members. That's the second piece. Just a little difference in the quality of products makes a big difference with the lifespan and well-being of pets, which is also given. Till now, I have not put the brand. Look at it from that perspective. Till now, not said they should do it because they will trust Heads Up for Tails. No, ma'am. That's secondary. You are here to make sure that think of what you are trying to do and the change that you're trying to bring. Okay. How will we tell them this? Now, this is where the brand comes in. What we have done is we have created a campaign, which is Huff for Family. It's a campaign that brings pets and pet parents together. They share many stories of how pets have impacted the lives of pet families. And our brand is integrated in a very subliminal way. Now, this is something I will request the founder or the representative to try and arrive at. Okay. It could be a simple hashtag, it could be a simple idea, it could be a 2-line idea, it could be anything, right? How will we make sure that people get to know what we tell them? Even if it's something as basic as I'm going to use influencer marketing, that is fine. Nothing's wrong with it. But try and articulate some idea here if you can. Okay. I know this is a difficult part. If you can't arrive at it, that's okay. You can go back and do it later also, right? This part is super important, which is why will they trust what we say? Which is by immersing them into our, and I'm not saying by forcing them, by communicating to them, by telling them. We need to immerse people into the idea of what we want them to know, into our value system. So in this case, our value system starts from a founder and goes to the foundation. Foundation is our social impact wing. We take care of street animals, right? So value system, which is the founder and the foundation. Science and art of product. Remember, I mentioned art and science, which is the research and development and the design advantage that we have. Our platform advantage, if you buy from us, then you get same day dispatch, your order tracking on WhatsApp, order on WhatsApp, all of that. Social impact, every order that you place on the website contributes to access to food, safety, and homes for street animals, right? So that's probably what we do. So why will they trust what we say? We have broken it down into these 4 aspects: value system, science and art of products, our platform advantage, and our social impact. These are the 4 pieces, right? You can think through, why will people trust you? In this case, clear example was, why will someone trust Soumya? Is because she is sitting in her real estate in the hills. She has a child. She has manufactured this. She understands the process. And she comes from a point of view where she's, or she comes from a state where she's getting her kid to use the same products, right? I'm just making this up right now, but you get the you get the state of it, right? So the 4 questions, just 4 questions. Don't complicate anything. Ask, just say very simple things, okay? Which is get who to do what, why should they do that, how will we tell them this, and why will they trust what we say. So when we break out into these 3 rooms, request the founders to quickly take a minute to tell people about your company, right? Just tell them, why did you start, what's your story, just tell them very, very quickly. And then whoever is in the room, speak up. Okay, speak up what intuitively comes to you, what you think is a great opportunity. Just speak up. Okay, imagine that you were in the founder space. You would love to get that information too, right? I wish we could do this with everyone in the room, so we could go through every brand and do this. But Sharad, maybe that's an offline session where we can block like 3 days to do that. But in this case, let's just. Is everyone clear about the breakout session itself? Okay. We are answering some very fundamental first principle questions, not complicated, no wrong answers on the table, just how you feel about things. But because you're all founders and because you all come from similar backgrounds, ideologies, frameworks, you will be able to help a fellow founder arrive at what might be very first principle conversations. Okay, does that make sense? Are we good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Sharad.
Okay, so the rooms are now going to be open. And like Samriddh said, every founder has been given a document. Make sure you fill out the document while you're getting feedback from the group. And post the breakout rooms, we'll sort of hear the founders speak. And I mean, Samriddh will be jumping in between the rooms anyways. So again, first spend 1 minute sort of introducing your brand so everyone knows who you are. Okay, so the rooms are now open. And then you will jump into the room that you've been assigned.
Sharad?
Yeah.
By mistake, I clicked on the not now button while joining the.
So who's this? Sorry, you have to give me your name actually.
Arpita. This is Arpita.
Okay. First, Arpita, you have to update your name and company name so I don't know which company.
Oh, I didn't do. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. Yeah.
And I'm totally in the room, don't worry. Okay. Yes, Samriddh, if you want me to help you join a room, you can tell me which one you want to join. Okay, you want to join.
Sharad?
Yeah,
sorry,
sure.
I haven't got the option yet to join.
No option yet, don't worry. Here you go. Hi, Samriddh. I'm guessing we have always little time.
Yeah, man. So this is good. This is just to get the conversation started, right? I mean, the cohorts with each other for how many weeks is this, or how many sessions?
8 weeks. 16 sessions.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
So through the 8 weeks, they can keep coming back and asking each other the same question and try to arrive at an answer for this, right? My job was just to trigger the question. Now, the rest of it, I'm assuming, is something that we will evolve at. But what we'll do is we'll take 15 minutes and we'll just get the 3 founders to speak very quickly on what they have felt through this.
Yeah.
Right. So if as and when everyone's back, then we can just open that up.
Yep, I think everyone's going to be back now. They're back. Everyone's back.
Excellent. All right, we have quorum.
Yep.
Awesome. Chinmay, do we start with you?
Yes. Okay. I haven't really answered the questions on the sheet yet that was shared
That's
with
fine.
me.
That's fine. Just go for it. First,
Yeah.
How did this help? Did it help you think differently about anything? That's the first question.
It did.
Right, and then you can of course get into the answers themselves.
Yeah. Yes, I think it definitely made me see things differently. I think this started happening from the time the WhatsApp group chat started buzzing. I think I'm one of the founders who have been trying to stay away from the communication material as much as possible. Don't want to put my face out there. I'm one of them. I think that's one thing to change for sure, because it is very, very true that the brand started because of me and because of how passionate I am about it. And the only way another person will know about it is by me talking about it, I guess. So yeah, I think that's one big change. And I think another big learning is clarity. And I think I'm not saying that I have more clarity now before I started the session. I feel like it's work. It's something that I need to work on more. But clarity is very important, because even in the breakout room, as I'm talking to people, one interesting thing was that we had 3 or 4 people who have used our product already talking to me, which is amazing. I always love that. It's my favorite thing about having this company.
So that's 3 or 4 new videos that you can make.
Yes. But you know what to say in these videos becomes so important, because when you're talking about storytelling, it's so easy to get lost in too many things told to people. And I think that is also important, because after 8 years, like you mentioned, every year, every 2 years, we ourselves have changed so much as a brand, and we have learned so much more about ourselves and what our speciality is, and what we should focus about, and what we care about most. And I think after 8 years, that's what everything comes down to. So if I'm now to explain our product, I might not really say that it's an ergonomically designed carrier, or it's made for India weather. Or this was great when we started out, which was 8 years ago, when there were no other carrier in the market like us. But that's not the case anymore. There are many more who have all started after us, who do very similar things and talk about very similar things. Moms being hands-free when you have your product, and having time to drink your cup of coffee, or being able to go out for a walk or shop. Great. Any carrier can do that. But I think the differentiating factor for our product is the fact that it is something that is a lot more than that. It is not just going to make you hands-free. There are many other products you can buy off Amazon, which is going to also make you hands-free, which probably also will be comfortable. But we are so much more as a brand to find what exactly that is that actually makes us so different from everybody else. I think brings back to how passionate we are, and how conscious we are, and how that is slightly always more important than what are the conventional business choices that people make for their brands and businesses, right? Like you mentioned, Samriddh, about how you will never have some products on your website because you just don't believe in them. I think the same thing applies to us also as a brand. I think one different major change is that I see now I'm able to see it as a strength. But there have been points in the past 8 years where I did not see it as a strength. And there were times when we tried to be like everybody else, and tried to say the same things that other things brands are saying, because maybe it's working for them, so it might work for us. These are the mistakes we have made. So I think I would say that we are in the process of figuring this out. But some things remain the same. We definitely know that we want parents to carry their babies. Not necessarily in a sole carrier. You can take a sari, and you can take a dupatta, and you can carry your baby, and it will make a difference to your life. And we are a brand built by a community of mothers as well, community of parents. So that is the change we want to create, which is more important to us than selling our product to that customer at a better price or better whatever. It goes without saying that we will put a lot of care into designing the product, because once again, if we don't use it for our baby, we will not sell it to you. So, yes, it goes without saying that we'll always make sure we are the most comfortable brand. And if something, some other brand is better than us in something, we will break our head and figure out what we can do to make our product as competent. But that is not the main reason why you should be buying our product. So getting parents to carry their babies is important, and they should do that because we firmly believe that it is going to make a big difference to our world. How our babies are parented is very, very important. And I think all the parents on this group will definitely agree. You're making the right choices by holding them close and making them feel secure. They will grow up to be confident human beings, and you will be a more confident and happier parent. You're doing it anyway, but I'm going to make it a little easier and more comfortable for you, while providing a community of mothers, while having a brand which is made of mothers who are going to be there with you through this journey, and not only help you with your career problems, but also talk to you about so many other things, which is where we have like a Facebook group created for a community of moms, where people discuss a lot of other things. And it's been fantastic. In fact, these are things that have held us through these past 8 years, when there are a lot of other things not going right. I think our community of customers have been really strong because they've found friends within this. So I think that is definitely something that we want to focus on. Why should they do that? I think this I spoke about in the breakout room as well. Yeah. Sorry if I'm going too fast. I'm trying to just...
That is fine. Don't worry about it.
Be quick about it. But why should they do that? Because the fact that we believe in it so strongly, and we have done it for our babies, and we have only moms doing this for other moms, even through pandemic, even through difficulties, even when I couldn't pay their full salaries. People have stuck around because they feel so strongly about it, that, you know, this is something they want to do, and they want to do something meaningful, not just something that is just bringing money, you know. And it's actually that team, I think, which is a reason for anybody to know that we firmly believe in our brand and our product, and which is why we sell it.
So here is the narrative for the 4 videos that you also were thinking of.
Yes, yes.
So you ended up saying it, and that's exactly what.
How will we tell them? How will we tell them this? This is the next question. I think we have definitely tried to keep our communication material very, very honest and straightforward. All our moms are, all our models are mothers themselves. They're all real, and you know, our community is real. People giving reviews and talking about their product to their friends. It's all real. So we are trying to keep that as real as possible. Like I said, I have been shying away from telling this myself. But this is what was very interesting, I think, for us also, because we try to physically have meetups and, you know, get-togethers, product demo sessions where people can come and try and take help and these things. And I have always felt like when people meet us in person, that is when the impact is really real. You know, they go back feeling so much better about everything, and they are the people who have come back to us for their second baby and gifted our products to all their friends who are having babies, because they heard it from us and they interacted with us in a, when I say us, I mean my whole team of moms who are just as passionate as me about this. So I think that bringing that across in your communication material is where we have struggled with, in because of many reasons, I myself being one of the big reasons. But I think that's the gap we need to bridge, and that's what we need to focus on, and actually believe that that is what your customers want to know about you, and not everything else that you know, the world makes you feel like is important, that you should talk about, but maybe that's not really so important. I think that has been the takeaway.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know it's a continuous process. So you have this entire cohort with you for the next 8 weeks. So make sure that you go back and exchange ideas through and through.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes. Who do we move to next? Sharad?
There's DU, Harshita. And we'll try to keep it a little quicker. Just want to make sure we have time because we want to finish.
Should I just quickly go through the framework? We've gone through it in the room, but should we do that again?
Awesome. If you want to, otherwise just quick reflection of if there's something specific that you were taking away, because I understand that you can keep evolving the framework any which ways because you have now time with everyone in this room to come back and speak to them. But if there's something specific that you had not thought of before and you have thought of now, that would be very good for the room to know.
Right. I think 2 things largely. One is that while we've been very strong on the pillars on which the brand has been built, communicating those pillars in a more human way, I think, is what we need to start doing. Say when we say that we promote you understanding your skin, you being intentional with your skin. While that's great to hear and there's a philosophy behind it, but to communicate it with a face, with probably the founder communicating it, or, you know, communicating that same pillar with the story behind it is something I think we would start doing more of now. Because I think that's what helps make the connect with the consumer, because they understand the backstory and able to relate to it. And second, I also believe where you said that, you know, so many words that you now use in your communication, say innovative or high performing, how they become outdated once you are past a certain stage. So I think that's something we would start evaluating too, because while we're still a very young brand, but I think we are now in that 1 to 10 stage where we need to see, as we scale up, what part of communication we want to continue with.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, we have Shaili.
Yes, Shaili from the Earth Collective. Yeah. Reflections, Shaili. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the key points that we realized during the breakout room is although we do focus a lot on concern-based solutions addressing various problems of hair and scalp, like what we have noticed is a lot of people ignore the scalp care as compared to hair care. So, and again, this is a segment where earlier there was a point where it was only after a certain age you face that issue, but now it's at all age. Hair is more a matter of confidence, and the problems like hair fall and early age balding, everything has become very, very common. So we need to focus our energies more on the issues that we are solving. And I think one of the major points which we have missed in our communication is our strength of having our own in-house R&D and manufacturing unit, which is more than 4 decades old. So we have a very strong backing when it comes to product development, and we are very confident of our product quality. So we have, in fact, I mean, never highlighted this aspect of ours that the company has a very strong foundation in terms of manufacturing and R&D. So I think that is one of the areas we'll look at communicating more in building the confidence in the brand.
Amazing. All right. You know, the fact is, it doesn't get built in a day. It's easy to say in a forum.
Yeah.
And then when you start to sit with your team and you break it down, then you realize that the daily tasks take over.
Of course.
But listen, the fact is, and this is across to all of you, just getting this story right is going to give you far more bang for your buck. You will realize that your traction on social media goes up. You'll realize that most of the metrics that you chase, which are so dear to all of us, they become far stronger, far better. You'll charge a stronger value and a stronger premium on your products if you're able to communicate these 2 or 3 things, you know, in a far stronger manner, right? Right now, if your product does not move till you don't discount it by about 20% odd, then it's not a problem of the market. It's a problem of the way you have been able to romance that product, right? So make sure that you can actually start charging 20% more and not discount it by 20%, right? And I think that is an extremely important piece. I just wish that I had more time. I genuinely have completely run out of time. But how this goes is it's an 8-week piece. Sharada, I'm happy to come back towards the end of the 8 weeks, maybe at some point if you want me to. And, you know, because as a cohort, we would have gone through different kinds of ideas, right? And principles, then maybe there are some questions at the end of it. I'm happy to come back and address it again. That's not a problem. Otherwise, feel free to write into me. I'm extremely easy to find. My parents named me right. There aren't too many Samriddhs. So it's just, you know, one of those mic drop moments where I can say Google me. Agar Rahul hota to main kabhi nahi bolta. Sorry if there's any Rahul here. But yeah, go for it. It's not complicated. Just try and ask yourself the same questions that I helped you navigate today. My job as a Sutradhar comes to an end. I am happy to come back later, as I mentioned. All the best. I don't know what's the next session, but I'm assuming it's going to be just as fun, if not more. And Sharad sort of make sure that it is. So have fun through these 8 weeks, learn new things.
Let us say thanks to you before you say thanks to us.
I mean, I'm thankful that people were patient with me. Advantages of the virtual piece.
So I just wanted to take another 2 minutes. I mean, I know you have to run just 1-2 minutes. So honestly, every time I attend Samriddh's session, you know, there's something new that unlocks in my mind. And there's a reason, because I've been doing this across multiple cohorts. So first thing I want to sort of take away is please go back and refresh all the exercises which have sort of been covered today around building your personal story, building your brand story, thinking of the framework correctly, right? A lot of the action will only happen when you sort of apply this into your company, right? And when you sort of sit back and think and apply is when you sort of be able to sort of clear those ideas. If you have questions somewhere, obviously you can sort of figure out how we can sort of manage that, but we'll have a feedback form posted and you can put your question in and we can sort of figure out how to share that as an answers. If from a summarizing perspective, I hope after the session, and this is why we do this as the first session, because it's really, really important we understand and communicate what we are doing and why have we started, right? And we need to sort of tell that to our customers. One of those key realizations is it's in our head, but it's not really in our channels. It's not really communicated across our touch points. And if, like Samriddh would say, right, let us remember how we make our customers feel. And if we are building brands as D2C, right, which are selling through our own websites, it's the stories that stick in our minds, right? Brands are actually moats and they convince people to return back. So, you know, when Samriddh said that, you know, like performance advertising might be dead, I'll definitely share that performance advertising will not work if you don't have a brand and it truly fall flat. You won't get repeat purchases, and that every performance advertiser will sort of, agree with. We might make it more efficient, but sort of story and brands are very, very critical before we can sort of, step the pedal on scaling. That being said, our next session is with Anshul. Anshul was also in Fireside, and we talk about building moats and sort of building benchmarks across categories, sort of think that a little more deeper. But before that, we have a way of saying thanks to Samriddh. If you all remember, so I'm going to do this two things. Samriddh, obviously, please join us in. The way we do this is, if you guys remember, I turn on this background music. We all unmute ourselves. We put our hands in front. You can join me. Hands in front. Yes, everyone. Priya, Rohit, Vanshaj. And we do a countdown between 3, 2, 1, and then the end we say with 14. Okay? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Go team. Thank you, everyone.
Go team.
Thank you, Samriddh. Thank you, everyone.